Happy Wednesday, everybody. Good to see you. Good to be seen in my beautiful Ash Gregoire Chambord and Maxima SR trim line, 300 horsepower in this bad boy. Love driving this in the sludge and the cold weather winter. And we call home here in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Welcome to another edition of In the Car with Star, proud presentation of Axon, axongroup.com. You can always call them at 888-99-AXON for more information on their expertise in transportation and logistics. Welcome to the bye week as the Montreal Canadiens season continues. And look, there's good news on the horizon, my friends. The Montreal Canadiens, the lottery odds are getting marginally better as the season grows older, and other teams that are in the bottom of the overall league standings are playing games while the Canadiens sit idle. As we've said multiple times, the Habs are off this week. They're back in action Saturday at 12:30 when they take on the New York Islanders, and they'll do it again Sunday afternoon at 12:30 when Connor McDavid and the Oilers roll up to the Bell Center to play the Montreal Canadiens, who again still are towards sixth of the overall standings, sixth likely to get the best odds to draft Connor Bedard this summer. But look, Chicago, Anaheim, all these teams picking up points. The Montreal Canadiens have a very young and very hurt roster, so it'll be fascinating to see the direction this team ultimately takes in the 31 remaining games, with the season resuming for the Habs on Saturday of this weekend, on Super Bowl weekend. You guys amped for Super Bowl Sunday, Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles. That's our matchup, with the Eagles favored by a small margin, 1.5. A total here at 50.5 points. We'll have an extended version of In the Car with Star, no doubt, this weekend as we set you up. We'll do a live broadcast here in this space. So whether you're watching us on YouTube or on Facebook, wherever you like to watch us, your preferred destination to consume In the Car with Star, that's where you're going to find us on Sunday, the morning of the Super Bowl, and then ultimately ready to dip our toes back into the Montreal Canadiens waters as we get that much closer to the NHL trade deadline, as we are now within a month, 3.5 weeks to be precise, before we land on March 3rd, the day of the NHL trade deadline. And I am here to tell you, I know where Jonathan Drouin is going to get traded. This just in, courtesy of In the Car with Star, breaking news. Jonathan Drouin will get traded to nobody. Nobody is going to acquire Jonathan Drouin, who we're talking about, an NHL player who had, and I use the past tense on purpose, such a high ceiling. He's a 95 birthday. Jonathan Drouin is 28 years young, and nobody is going to want Jonathan Drouin on their roster. No one is picking up Jonathan Drouin for a stretch drive. No team as deep, as secure as they may be inside their four walls that they call their locker room, nobody is taking a chance. Not a singular team will take a flyer on Jonathan Drouin. Not going to happen. And it's a travesty, truly, what's happened to a player that, at a junior, out of Halifax, with the connection he had with Nathan MacKinnon, the success those two guys ran with in Halifax, to the point where Jonathan Drouin gets chosen third overall by the Tampa Bay Lightning. And as we now know, it just never clicked with this guy. And it didn't click with Tampa. They sent him to Syracuse in the American Hockey League. It doesn't kind of work out there. We know that Jonathan Drouin went to the organization through his representation and said, listen, get me out of here. Marc Bergevin strikes a deal. In order to get, you got to give. Nobody knew the future at the time. But, this has been my argument for so many years, that I understand that drafting and scouting it's a gamble. It really is a proposition. It really is a bet. You're betting that your guess is going to be right. That's what you're banking on. You're betting on your guess that Jonathan Drouin for Mikhail Sergachev is going to benefit the Montreal Canadiens in the present and in the long-term view of building the Montreal Canadiens, when Marc Bergevin ultimately decided to trade his defensive blue-chip prospect for what he thought, and listen, I thought too, a blue-chip offensive star and a Gud Chenu coming to Montreal. And here we are, with the future now being the present. Jonathan Drouin, at 28 years young, doesn't have a goal yet this season. He's got 6 goals combined over his last 62 games. And we're talking about a guy who has 30 some odd point, 32, 34 points over his last 62 games combined. There isn't a single general manager, in my opinion, that will offer Kent Hughes anything in order to get cap relief and whatever that may be. Because again, if you're looking at Jonathan Drouin numbers in terms of a cap relief situation, it's not that heavy. It's not that stiff, with 51. So there's 31 games to go. We're talking about prorated, like not much money, maybe $1 million, maybe slightly less than that. So we're not talking about a huge penalty. And I don't think there's a general manager that's going to line up and say, I'll do you a favor, Kent Hughes. I'll take Jonathan Drouin because I'm the guy that believes that my infrastructure, my team, my players, my coaching staff is going to maximize the efforts out of this kid. And look, I'm not taking cheap shots. It is what it is with Jonathan Drouin. He has enough service time. He has enough experience. There's a large enough sample size for us to come to a conclusion. We are past the days of Jonathan Drouin's career of, he might be. No, it is what it is, as the cool kids like to say. You are who you are. And I don't think we're going to see this emergence and the I told you so that Jonathan Drouin is going to take a page out of Robert Saleh's playbook, the head coach of the New York Jets, and he's going to be holding on to these receipts, ready to shove them down your throat when the day comes that Jonathan Drouin is a preeminent scorer and player in the National Hockey League. I'm ready to tell you that ain't happening, and the Montreal Canadiens are going to have to buy this guy out because there isn't a future anymore. I think it was Francois Gagnon of RDS talking about Jonathan Drouin recently, and I do believe, and I don't want to get this wrong, and so my apologies if I do kick this around a little bit, but I do believe Francois Gagnon is of the opinion that Jonathan Drouin is now of the PTO caliber. Can you believe we are here with this guy, if that is in fact true? And I kind of see it the way Francois Gagnon does. I made up my mind with Jonathan Drouin a few years ago, if I'm being totally honest with you. And now it seems like the rest of the hockey world has kind of caught up, and that we're talking about it. That Jonathan Drouin wants to stay in the NHL and wants to play professional hockey at the highest level for a living, that he's going to have to prove his worth on a PTO, a professional tryout. That's where we are now. And like it or lump it, the Jonathan Drouin for Mikhail Sergachev will go down as one of the worst trades in the history of the Montreal Canadiens. I don't think, as a matter of fact, I'm comfortable telling you I know in my mind the worst trade in Habs history for me will and likely will always be the Patrick Waugh deal. There wasn't a player in hockey that I loved more than the Montreal Canadiens goaltender. Posters on the wall in my bedroom as a kid. Multiple 33 Canadian sweaters in my collection as a kid. Yes, and I wasn't a goalie, but I would wear Patrick Waugh jerseys out, to Parc Petit and Ville Saint Laurent when me and my buddies would get together and play hockey. I wore my Patrick Waugh jersey, number 33, and I had Waugh on the back. Like, I was a Patrick Waugh guy. And to see what happened in that disintegration of their relationship between player and organization, as a matter of fact, I point you in the direction of the Montreal Gazette. Hit up the Montreal Gazette website, go to their sports section, read Herb Zurkowsky. Mike Keane, the former Montreal Canadiens captain, was here this week. The American Hockey League had its All-Star game, and it took place in Laval. It's a suburb of Montreal if you're not from here. And it's where the Laval Rocket, the Canadiens' AHL affiliate, it's where they play their home games at Place Belle in Laval. It's a great little rink. It's intimate, great sight lines no matter where you are, good in-game entertainment. But Herb Zurkowsky of the Montreal Gazette was out in Laval to catch up with Mike Keane, who was there. I mean, he works with the Winnipeg Jets. He was once upon a time a member of the Manitoba Moose. I believe he was the first player in the history of that organization to have his jersey retired. He spent 5 years there. He was the Montreal Canadiens captain. He was a hell of a player for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, this is a guy who was like 5'9", 5'10", played over 1,100 games in the NHL. This guy had a very good career. And ultimately, he was a throw-in. He was a throw-in in the Patrick Waugh deal that saw Roy and Mike Keane go out to Colorado. They would go on to win the Stanley Cup. The Canadiens got Martin Ruzinski. They got Kovalenko. They got Jocelyn Thibault. All of this in return for what was a generational talent of the goaltender that was very much responsible for helping bring the 23rd and 24th Stanley Cups to Montreal. And then ultimately, one of the funny anecdotes that Herb Zurkowsky got out of Mike Keane in his story at the Montreal Gazette was that infamous December 6th game or was it the 5th? I was at that game. I was there, standing room only tickets at the Montreal Forum with my buddy Oscar. And it's Mike Keen's talking about his perspective watching the meltdown, right? The Red Wings are scoring goal after goal after goal after goal, and then they keep scoring, and everyone on the Canadiens bench at the time is they're looking at each other saying, "Wow, how come he's still in there?" Like, it doesn't matter. You're young, you're old, it's irrelevant to the conversation. No goaltender at the NHL level stays in for as long as Patrick Roy did. And Mario Tremblay, wanted to show him who the boss was and basically tell him, "I run the show, not you, Patrick," and left him in there for all the goals. And then there's the Bronx cheers. Patrick Roy puts his hand up after he makes a routine stop and a shot from center ice. The Montreal Forum crowd erupts in a sarcastic ovation. Patrick Roy goes back to the bench after he finally gets pulled, and the rest is history. Says he'll never play for the Montreal Canadiens again, and of course he never did, which takes us to the worst trade in Montreal Canadiens history. That was it, right then and there. I personally believe it set the Montreal Canadiens franchise back at least a decade, and here we are now, talking on this 8th day of February, wondering about when the day is going to come that the Montreal Canadiens are going to be the who's who of the National Hockey League again. And while we're talking about the Canadiens winning their 23rd, 24th Stanley Cups, also remember, as good as Patrick Roy was, and the breaks they kind of had in 86, the breaks they had in 93. Remember, the Kings beat the Leafs, the Islanders beat the Pittsburgh Penguins. Those were the two juggernaut teams that I think most people thought were going to ultimately win the Stanley Cup in 1993. But no, it's the Montreal Canadiens. Eric Desjardins scores a hat trick. Canadiens win. Canadiens roll Kelly Rudy and the LA Kings. But remember that the common theme in the Canadiens' run to their Cup in 86 and their Cup run in 1993, yes, Patrick Roy was there both times, clearly. But you know what else? This little fun factoid we sometimes forget, and it makes me excited. It's why sometimes I'm so passionate about Cole Caulfield. I'm so passionate about this market, this organization getting away from the Sahara Desert of offense, is those teams, 86 and 93 specifically, that brought home titles. Collectively, the team scored over 300 goals. That is how you do it. You need that melange. And so, yes, I do believe the Patrick Roy deal, the Mike Keane throw-in deal, set the organization back a clear decade. And it doesn't matter whether it's December of 1995 or February of 2023. Language was an issue then. Language remains an issue now, because at the time, Mike Keane was named captain of the Montreal Canadiens. Mike Keane didn't speak a lick of French. And, as sometimes we often do in Montreal, when a reporter asked him, "Hey, Mike, any designs on parler français un jour? Are you going to learn to speak French one day?" Mike Keane said to the reporter, "No, the predominant language in the room in the NHL is English. So no, I'm not going to learn French." So what happened there? A sensational headline: Capitaine Canadien refuse de parler français. The Canadiens captain refuses to speak French. It's a sensational headline. It's clickbait in the 1990s before clickbait turned into a real thing here. But that wasn't it. But that's how you get people to react. That's why we're so passionate. You get people so fired up. How dare the captain of the Montreal Canadiens say he refuses to speak French because English is the majority language in hockey and in the Montreal Canadiens room. It's not what he said. It's not what he said. But, we twist things here and we turn it into a Boilermaker. And now Mike Keane is a throw-in. Mike Keane had a hell of a career. So did Patrick Roy. It's a damn shame that the organization couldn't get out of its own way, that egos were such a thing that ultimately it altered the course of the Montreal Canadiens' history. And now here we are with Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon tasked with bringing this organization back. And it takes me back to my headline today. I know where Jonathan Drouin is getting traded. The answer is nowhere, nowhere, nowhere. Not happening. No goals in 28 games this season. Jonathan Drouin has no goals in 28 games this season. And where the Canadiens go from here, as we spoke about last week, we're getting that much closer, 3.5 weeks away from the March 3rd NHL trade deadline. Joel Edmondson, I do not think, is bringing back a first-round draft pick. Ken Hughes already has 2. He wants a third one. I don't see Josh Anderson getting moved between now and March 3rd. If Josh Anderson is going to get moved, and by all accounts, the Montreal Canadiens like Josh Anderson, by all accounts, Calgary is in hot pursuit of Josh Anderson, and there are teams in hot pursuit of Joel Edmondson as well. In particular, the Edmonton Oilers are coming knocking. And apparently the Florida Panthers may be looking a little bit too, so we'll see what happens. But I'm starting to set my level of expectation at a very modest level, to be honest. There was a time maybe a month or so ago, or perhaps just before the Christmas break, that I thought, man, oh man, we're going to see potential fireworks from Ken Hughes really putting his stamp on this team under his stewardship. I no longer am of that opinion. It's an ever-evolving monster. And I am more inclined that big, bold moves, and I would classify Josh Allen. I would classify Josh Anderson as a bold move. I would classify trading Jake Allen as another bold move. Just a couple of names off the top of my head. I would classify those type of transactions not in the next 3.5 weeks, but more likely in the summer months, or perhaps more for more drama on the draft floor on draft day, where the Montreal Canadiens are hoping to make some moves and hoping to make up ground. As I spoke about last week, this market, this fan base has really sold me on Team Tank, especially with all the injuries, especially now that Cole Caulfield's season is over, and the fact that, if you're looking for a real reason to latch on to the Canadiens, give me a reason to watch, Sean. Cole Caulfield was the answer. And now that his season is done and dusted, what's left? What's left is making sure the Montreal Canadiens don't do what I think we've all wanted. And I was on this bandwagon too, not so much on Team Tank, but I was always of the opinion, and back me up in the comments, that the last thing this organization needed was to finish 13th or 12th. That could not happen. That would be mission failed. That would be worthy of heavy criticism, in my opinion, from the likes of myself, Connor McKenna, the entire crew at TSN 690, and anybody else that watches this team, that Ken Hughes and Jeff Gordon dropped the bag. That in that worst case scenario, Canadiens finished 12th, 13th. Yes, that is mission failed. So I don't think that's going to happen. I actually think the Canadiens are going to lose a lot more games than they win in the remaining 31 that make up this season. Before I get into LeBron James, let's get to the comments. John Canadiens. Drouin ended his own career with his many years of not being productive. For sure, it's undeniable. He's got no goals in 28 games. He's got 6 goals combined over his last 62 and barely over 30 points in 62 games. Cole Caulfield, in one full year with Martin St. Louis, has 48 goals. I understand Jonathan Drouin's production didn't fall off a cliff. Kaiser Soze, it disappeared, vanished in thin air. The question is why? Why? And what did the Montreal Canadiens see in Jonathan Drouin that said, other than his name is Jonathan Drouin, what did they see that said we're comfortable giving up a blue chip prospect in Mikhail Sergachev, who's gone on to only help Tampa Bay win 2 Stanley Cups? What did they see? What was it? Were the Canadiens so desperate for a vedette de chez nous, a star player from Quebec, that they didn't look beyond that they didn't vet, that they didn't look? Right? Like, look what happened in the NHL recently. Don Fehr, the head of the NHLPA, is gone. They bring in the Secretary of Labor, Mr. Walsh, from the United States government. He will be the new head of the NHLPA. Guess what? He's the former mayor of Boston with a deep encyclopedic knowledge of all things Boston Bruins. I mean, this guy could tell you about history of the Boston Bruins from 80 years ago. And he is super tight. He's a Boston Bruins season ticket holder, and he's super tight with the owner, Jeremy Jacobs, who happens to be one of the most influential and powerful owners in the NHL. How does the NHLPA look at that and say, oh, there's no red flags, there's no conflict of interest? They didn't know. They did not know. So there's a lot of trust that goes into these things, and I'm sure you can relate. I'm sure there's somebody watching, listening, that has vouched for someone. Someone in a position of power has reached out to you and said, hey, what do you think about so-and-so? I'm thinking about bringing them in. and you vouch for them. There's a level of trust that gets extended with that type of relationship. And part of me thinks that Marc Bergevin and Trevor Timmins and that whole crew there looked at Jonathan Drouin, saw the last name, saw where he was born, know where he's from. Yes, the stats were very good in the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League for sure. And they said, well, 1 + 1 = let's trade for this guy. And that's kind of where it ended. Comments coming in. Joel Edmondson is what, 4, 5, 6 on a good team. Can't see Habs getting a first for him. Maybe term helps, but still, I don't disagree. I don't disagree. And you know, I'm not Monday morning quarterback in this bad boy here when I tell you I never thought Joel Edmondson was Ben Sherratt. I never thought that Joel Edmondson has a Stanley Cup. Joel Edmondson is a no-risk defenseman, and that's very attractive. It's very attractive to another general manager that wants that comfort of having a veteran defenseman who's won the Stanley Cup and is really a no-risk type player. That's a very valuable commodity. I get it, but you're not going to pay for that. I don't think so. Steph Howard, what up, buddy? I think it will be okay. What? What's going to be okay? Steph, elaborate. I say a lot of things in this video, my friend. I think it will be okay. And talking about Jeff Gordon and Ken Hughes, I don't know. John Canadian's back in the comments exactly. Last name, but they put him down in the minors. Also should have been a bit of a red flag. Remember when Tampa sent John Drouin to Syracuse, he's like, get me to bleep out of here. Jonathan Drouin had a lot of self-belief that he was better than being an AHL player, you know? And, you know, at the time, I love swagger. I love confidence. I love the belief that you can speak boldly about yourself. But it's one thing. What do they say? Talk is cheap. Show me. And I thought Jonathan Drouin came here with a good attitude. I thought Jonathan Drouin took on all challenges when the Montreal Canadiens said, hey, we're going to try this guy at center. He took it on. He didn't bitch and moan. He took it on. He was a good soldier. So, like, the whole mechanics behind what happened, you know. And look, I mean, obviously it's a very private affair for Jonathan Drouin. The guy clearly went through some things and maybe still is. I don't know. But I would love a little bit more information. I'm very curious. I'd love to know how a player with such promise and such a ceiling, chosen 3rd overall, what happened? Why did it go sideways? And how come it was never recoverable? You know, those are questions I'm just interested in. Steph Howard, I'm also done with Jeremy Jacobs. Anyways, he's close to 90 exactly, but still has so much influence in the National Hockey League. Fascinating night in pro sports. I didn't stay up to watch this. I'm curious to see where you guys come down on this. LeBron James with a 38-point performance in a 133-130 loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. In that loss, LeBron James passed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to become the NBA's all-time leading point scorer. A tremendous accomplishment. One of those records for me that I never thought would be broken. Fully aware Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the most prolific scorer in NBA history. I thought, you know, the point total at over 38,000 was unachievable. I thought that Wayne Gretzky's 894 career goals was also an unshatterable record, if that's a word, if I can use it. But we're on the cusp. We saw history made last night, and I think we will one day be here together talking about Alexander Ovechkin scoring 895 career goals to become the NHL's version of LeBron James, who not only is now the all-time leading point getter, he's also 4th in assists, something that Connor McKenna, my broadcast partner on TSN 690, told me about. Something I was not, I don't know, I'm not that deep on LeBron James stats and everything else, but it's been an incredible journey for a kid that, you know, we've been watching. Like, think about how long you've been aware of LeBron James. Like, think about how long you've known who LeBron James is, right? Like, you know where he's from Akron, the small little town in Ohio. You know that he was on SI Kids like Bryce Harper was. You know, like Bryce Harper, Sidney Crosby, LeBron James. These are athletes we've known since they were teenagers. Athletes we were told about, watch out for this guy, because in 10 years, they're going to be doing things we never thought were possible. And now here we are. Isn't it such a small sample size of these type of athletes, whether it's a LeBron or a Kobe out of high school, Sidney Crosby, certainly in the NHL, these prodigies that we're told that are going to wow us and amaze us over the course of their careers, and they did it. Like, as I've gotten older, I've appreciated the psychology of an athlete, I think, more than the physical presence or the physical abilities of the athlete, because the ability to bear down and the ability to focus for a prolonged period of time, whether it's in game or in season, is such a difficult thing to do, that these athletes are able to do that and dial in and find the zone more often than not, that allows them to be these iconic figures in professional sports is so admirable, because for me, it's so unachievable in my own life. I look at it with such admiration. I'm like, man, how do you guys do this? How do you make it happen? Why are you so good? And what allows you to be that great? The psychology of LeBron James to me is fascinating. Fascinating that this kid, I mean, I can't even imagine. Picture yourself in grade 10, and they're taking you out of your gym at Laurel Hill Academy in Ville Saint Laurent, and they're moving you to the Molson Center to play basketball, and you're in grade 10. Like, what kind of life is that? It's so unrelatable to me. It's such completely a foreign concept that I sit back now at 44 years old, and I got to be honest, everyone, I'm in awe. I'm just in awe of LeBron, of all of these generational athletes. Tiger Woods, doesn't matter, that told us they were going to do it, and they did it. Man, I tip my cap to you. And, you know, it was a fascinating conversation McKenna and I had this morning with the great Dwight Walton. Head over to tsn690.ca. You'll find that conversation there. As a matter of fact, why don't you download the Morning Show podcast on iHeartRadio and other podcast platforms? Connor and I put together what I think is a commercial-free, at least a 60-minute kind of best of every morning show that we do together. And it's out there on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. The TSN 690 Morning Show podcast is there. And within it today, you'll find Dwight Walton's hit with us. And he was just fantastic. Dwight is the authority of basketball in this market as far as I'm concerned. And just talking about how LeBron wants to stay around, how LeBron wants to reach the 40,000 points in his career. And ultimately, I think one of the goals for LeBron that he stated clearly for a long time is playing with his son. Both of them, one of them for sure. So look out for that. LeBron James isn't going anywhere anytime soon. The PGA Tour has a new wrinkle for this season. You guys know what's going on. It's the Waste Management Phoenix Open. It starts tomorrow. You know, I'm sure you've seen a highlight or two if you're not a diehard golfer. This is the stadium course. This is the big par 316, I believe, where they got all the fans. They heckle you. They talk shit all the time. If you miss the green, they boo you off the course, more or less. It's an event not made for everybody. Some guys love that type of party atmosphere, that type of more traditional North American sports atmosphere, more of a party. And there are other guys that they're not comfortable in that environment, and that's fine. But the Waste Management Phoenix Open is one of a few now designated events. What does that mean? Well, we can thank the Live Tour for this because, as we know, the rival tour to the PGA has paid all these former stars in professional golf gobsums of money, and it forced the PGA Tour to pivot, to look at some of their more high-profile events and said, well, we need to start paying our guys a little bit more money. So what they did was they came up with this designated event system, and it starts with the Waste Management Phoenix Open. So it's a ginormous purse now. It's a super stacked field. So you're going to see designated events like this one. The Genesis is another one. Obviously, all four majors will be under the designated event banner. The St. Jude Classic is also of the designated event. So it's these kind of marquee events outside of the four majors that promise ginormous purses to attract a stacked field to this event outside of the majors. So that's kind of where we are with the new designated event that starts tomorrow on the PGA Tour. And it's why you have someone like Hideki Matsuyama, who's won this event twice in his career, why you're getting like 14-1 odds, because the field is so bleep and stacked. So That's where we're looking at. And listen, for the record, I am not anti-LIV, the rival to the PGA Tour. I'm a nutcase, diehard golfer. I watch golf. I consume a lot of golf content. I play a lot of golf. And if it gets more people to talk about golf, to create more drama, more storylines, more mainstream discussions about golf, I am here for it. If it gets more people to consume golf content, I am here for it. If it gets more people out on the golf course, I am here for it. Will I be watching LIV? Do I think LIV golf is super lame and super weak ass? Absolutely. Like the Range Rats, the Aces, these ridiculous cornball fromage teen names and these boring, uncool, never cool, unsophisticated personalities that make up LIV golf. Like Dustin Johnson is a phenomenal player, first ballot Hall of Famer. He's about as entertaining as drywall. Louis Oosthuizen has won one event. It was a major, the British Open, like 15 years ago. He's done nothing of substance ever since. Ian Poulter is about as corny, about as big of a loser as you're going to find. And then there's Bryson DeChambeau. Shit, don't even get me started on this guy. So, yes, I don't like the players on LIV. I don't support it. But I'm not going to shoot it down either. The ultimate goal for me is I just want more people to talk, consume golf, and ultimately get out there and play it, But I just can't look past the fact that this rival league to the PGA Tour is so corny, is so polluted with cheeseball personalities that, like, I don't know. I'm 44 years old. I don't hang around with 14-year-old, 15-year-old sports fans. I don't know what the 14-year-old or 15-year-old sports fan wants out of professional golf. I had one guy on Twitter tell me he's 22 years old. All of his buddies love golf. None of them are down with LIV. They're all down with the PGA Tour. So there's one guy who says him and his early 20-something-year-old buddies are all about the PGA Tour lifestyle. I don't know where LIV is going to go, but I promise you this. Bryson DeChambeau playing air guitar with a shitty driver is not going to get people to tune in on the CW or on YouTube to their product. So it's one of the fascinating journeys. But look, here we are talking about it. People will be talking about it ultimately to see the potential rivalry like we saw in Dubai between Patrick Reed and Rory McIlroy. This is what I'm talking about. That is good for golf. That has a lot of people talking about golf, and that is ultimately what I'm here for. So if you have designs to go follow LIV and go to far-reaching destinations like Singapore or Dubai, you can get there for sure. You're going to get there. But you want your freight to get there on time, on budget, at the same time as you? Yes, you do. That's why I've partnered with Axon. It's a locally owned and operated transportation and logistics company. They have the knowledge and the assets to get your freight to its destination on time, on budget, because your freight is as valuable to them as it is to you. So you can trust their knowledge and their assets and their expertise in the logistics space to get your freight to its destination on time. Trust nobody else other than Axon. AxonGroup.com for more information. You can call them. Call them right now. 888-99 Axon for more information. Don't forget, my friends at K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur are open 24 hours a day. Well, their gas bar is. Certainly, you can get premium fuel at discount prices in Ganawage. It's 12 minutes from downtown Montreal. It's right over the Mercier Bridge. It's the third light. Hang a right. You can't miss it. You'll see the gigantic K-Stop Gas Bar. If you're on the 138, You'll find it on your passenger side, and they got someone there to pump your gas. While they're doing that, you walk into the depanneur. Today is Wednesday. Could be a salad bowl day today. Could be a fajita bowl day today. Why not a BLT sandwich at K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur? Yes, they have a full kitchen. I'm not talking about putting something in the microwave, heating it up for 45 seconds. Here you go, sir. Unwrap the plastic, and now you're eating a cheeseburger. No. Fresh, garden-grown vegetables in your BLT sandwich. So while you're getting premium fuel at discount prices at K-Stop, you're getting your lunch and all your snacks for Super Bowl weekend at K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur, Highway 138 in beautiful Ganawage. It's like 8 minutes. You're in LaSalle. It's even less if you're in Chateauguay. Just drive through Chateauguay. Go to K-Stop Gas Bar and Depanneur, Highway 138 in Ganawage. The Montreal Canadiens back in action on Saturday afternoon, 12:30. When they take on the Islanders. It's their annual Super Bowl weekend matinee festival. So they've got the Islanders Saturday at 12:30, and then obviously Sunday at 12:30 against the Connor McDavid led Edmonton Oilers, who are on an absolute heater. Jack Campbell backstopped the Oilers to a dominant 5-1 win in Detroit last night, and he's 8-0 in his last 8 starts. Oilers are on a bit of a heater. Be curious to see if they actually do pull the trigger on Joel Edmondson, because, again, the Oilers are still in a hot pursuit. We've got some exciting projects coming up right here on In the Car with Star in particular. I'm going to be doing some more golf interviews coming up, so look for that soon. New equipment has been rolled out. Let's talk to the reps and the fitters that get us into the new gear. So we're going to get ready for the new golf season locally. That's coming up in this space. And don't forget, this weekend, yours truly and Jerry B, the Prop King, will be here for our Super Bowl extravaganza program on In the Car with Star. Thanks for watching. You can like, subscribe on YouTube, on Facebook, share it, hit us up in the comments. I'll try to get to you as I can throughout the day. And as always, you can support me by supporting my sponsors, AxonGroup.com and K-Stop, Gas Bar, and Depener. Call Axon right now, 888-99-AXON, AXSUN, or more information online on their website at AxonGroup.com. So that's it for me. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your comments. And we'll catch you soon. Don't forget, a live episode of In the Car with Star coming up Super Bowl Sunday.